Good morning and welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host today, Tina Prigge, and it is a beautiful day on the coolest coast for a little book banter with Therese Horstgetter from the award-winning Manitowoc Public Library. Therese, welcome back to Coffee on the Coast.
Morning. Good to be here again.
It is, always such a happy day for me because we get to talk about books, and I love this. So thank you so much for joining us. And you've got a couple of books on the docket to talk about. Do you want to talk about disclaimer first? Let me pull it up. I read the title, and then I read the little blurb, and it says, "Imagine if the next thriller you read was all about you." And that gave me some chills. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, with the name, if you can see this cover, that is the one that caught my attention. And with, in the beginning of a book, it'll say names have been changed if there were any, or this is a work of fiction and these are not real people. It would only be accidentally. Well, this cover crosses all that off. So basically, the disclaimer is not going to be real. And a woman, she is a documentarian. Is that right? The right word? She produces documentaries, and she finds this book on her nightstand as they are moving into their new home. And she starts to read it, and within a short time is in the bathroom completely losing it because it is about her. And it is about an event that happened in her life 20 years previously, and she should be the only person alive that knows about it. So, and she definitely had nothing to do with the book. So
we're not talking coincidence. It's not just resembles her life. It is truly a specific event.
The female's name in the book is changed somewhat. Other characters' names are changed, but keeping like first initials, that kind of thing. And the whole scenario is too exact to not be her and what happened to her. So, saying it happened 20 years ago, she had a young son at the time who is now an adult, and he has moved into his own place. It's her and her husband. And she cannot figure how the book got there. She cannot figure who is involved. When she tries to look it up, she cannot find this book anywhere. And, it's not on the internet. Look on Amazon. Nope, this book isn't there.
Wait, did she check with her librarian?
No, we don't bring up a librarian, unfortunately. They probably could have found it in a second. No, but so it's a mystery just from how did it get in her home? Because her husband did not put it there. Son does not live with them. Yeah, and it's
not just a manuscript. It's bound like a book. It's
book. Yes. So kind of hard to not say what happens, of course, because you first find out quite a ways into the book what actually happened. And this is something that her husband is not aware of either, that they were married at the time that this incident happened, but she kept it a secret from him as well. And so there are a lot of, it's not exactly twists, but that you find out parts of the story. Part are just narrated, and then part is with one person that's also giving part of the story, and it's not her. So you're seeing things from, a couple of different perspectives, and they start falling into place first later in the book. I actually started rereading it, and I'm about a quarter of the way before the end. And I know what happens. I just didn't remember all of the details. And so I thought, I just have to read it again. It was and it's being good the second time around. So.
Oh, wow. And so it sounds like it wasn't a happy event or something like that happened in the past. It sounds like it's something that maybe definitely should have been kept a secret. And so is the person that left the book, is it a vendetta kind of situation, a revenge situation?
There is a lot of that involved. And um, for reasons as you get to know the characters, um, it's kind of this person is mistaken in their vendetta, even. They're involved enough, but where you have a little information, but not all of it. That's kind of where is also taking place in here. So yeah,
A
it
classic misunderstanding.
and has a little bit of that. I'm not sure what's going on here, maybe once in a while, but then it'll explain itself again. It gets back on to where you're understanding what's happening.
Well, it certainly sounds like a unique scenario. I'm going to put the cover up one more time, although the cover you had is even more interesting with all of the redacted text. But the book we're talking about is Disclaimer by Renee Knight. And what an interesting concept, to the thought of picking up a book and all of a sudden you're reading your own story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Mary says, good morning. Cool. So we've got a couple of other books too that you wanted to talk about. Let me pull up this one, Beneath the Flames by Gregory Lee Renz. I had never heard of that book. So I Googled it and it told me that it's a searing debut novel. I like the choice of searing when it's under, beneath the flames. It says it's an intimate combination of love, race, and the complexities of life through the eyes of an inner city firefighter. Tell us more. That sounds pretty intense.
This, I was really, really pleasantly surprised when I started reading it. I guess I was afraid it was not going to be as involved as I wanted. But it is really a good read. The author, Gregory Lee Renz, was a Milwaukee firefighter for, I believe it was 20 some years. And he actually is in the Firefighters Hall of Fame for having rescued a couple of boys in a fire. He wrote this book, and it is based on Mitch, a young farmer in Wisconsin who applies to be, and he's a volunteer firefighter locally. He applies to be a firefighter in Milwaukee and is accepted there. There is a lot of family drama going on. When he heads to Milwaukee, he's leaving behind a girlfriend, and things are a little iffy with them at that point. But he leaves behind his brother, his father, his girlfriend, and he does not have a good relationship with his father either. But he leaves, and following a tragedy that happens also in their area, and he becomes this trainee firefighter. So he has some tough guys training him. He has some very friendly guys training him. And he makes friends with some of the other trainees. And you get to know their families. They are Milwaukee residents, a couple of them. And they're in a really tough part of Milwaukee with a lot of gang issues, things like that, drug issues. And he ends up befriending some children in the area that live like right across the street from the firehouse. They start coming over. He starts helping teach them reading, things like that. So it's like he's kind of trying to make up for things he's missing back home, kids that were, just locals that he didn't get to see any longer. And it really gets very involved. And it is definitely a gritty book. It really does give details, and the descriptions of what's happening when they have to go into fires it's just really well written, that you feel that you are there, you are getting so much of it. And he deals well with the drama, with the family drama, with racism, with, just I great book. And he had contacted us or I've been in contact with him then, excuse me, about an author event in fall here. So we hope we will be having, hopefully in person, if we are at that point, otherwise a virtual program, but we really hope to have him. He lives with his wife in Wisconsin yet after he retired, and it took him like 10 years writing the book, but it is a very good read, really a very good read.
And I think, based on that description, what really sounds like it would make it powerful is the fact that he can write from experience. You said he was a firefighter himself, and now he's writing about the firefighter experience. So he doesn't have to imagine it. He didn't have to research it. He actually could talk right from the heart. And how cool that it is set in Wisconsin. It sounds like rural Wisconsin and then Milwaukee. And so, again, it's not just an imagined far off city that an author picked, but it's a city that the author knows, and it's close to home. Wow. Yeah, it sounds delightful. I mean, delightful in concept, even though the story sounds a bit heavy. And how cool that would be to have an author of it.
Yeah. And as usual, I think every book that I read, I comment that there are great characters in here. There's really a wide variety because of where he lived, then where he ends up working, and just all of the people he gets to know there. So yeah, it is really a good read. I think anybody would be happy with it because it meets their, just like I said, all of the different things that it covers and involves.
Just a quick good morning to Stephen from Fond du Lac. Thanks for messaging in. Therese, one thing I really love and appreciate about the books that you recommend is there does always seem to be some depth. There's always interesting character development, plot development. I've never been disappointed with a Therese Horsketter recommendation.
Thank you.
And so there's a third book that you brought to our attention today. I'm going to pull that up. It's called Here If You Need Me. It says it's a true story by Kate Braestrup. And I read a little bit on the back of the book, and this sounds like a pretty heavy topic, but also heavy that leads to some beautiful kind of redemption. Tell us more about this story.
It is heavy in the basic idea of the book, what happens. Kate Braestrup is married to Drew, a Maine state trooper. And one morning he leaves for work and says goodbye to her and their 4 children and is killed by an oncoming vehicle that loses control. His dream that they had discussed often was to become a minister. So Kate then, within her grieving, takes that idea and becomes a chaplain for the troopers, for the job her husband had. So there's a lot of hard moments in here, but there's also, she gives you a good feeling when she writes and talking about this, and she has moments of humor in here, and she, talking about the kind of situations that she gets into, being there to comfort people when they have hard situations, and children lost, and she gets called in to help the families and the troopers that are working, and she it's just, I don't know how to explain it. Not that she took over for her husband, but that kind of kept him a part of her, with this being a dream of his, that she got to take a part of it. And
Interesting.
yeah, and this one is a short book. She actually has 3 others. They are all kind of partial memoirs of different parts of her life, but this was the earliest one. I haven't read the others, but I'm hoping to fit them in, because this book was from 2009, I believe, and I still recommend it often. I think it's just a wonderful memoir for a part of her life, and the way she moves forward from here. Yeah, and talking just about her family life too, as well as what she experiences going through this. And she was already a writer, so that just continued with that. She had already been writing at that point, but then started that she had books published after this. And one other thing to mention is there's a TV show called Northwood's Law, and it is about game wardens, that kind of thing. And in Maine, basically, it is set. And that's where this is set, where she lives. And I don't watch it faithfully, but one time it was on, and there she was, live when they were trying to find a man that was missing, and she was there. So it was really
Wow.
see her in action besides,
Right.
wonderful.
Impressive that she was able to take such a tragic situation, work through that grief, and turn it into something that not only, helped her work through it, but that she's now providing such a beneficial service to the
Right.
other people in her community, to the Brotherhood of Troopers that her husband worked for. Wow, that's impressive.
Yes, yes. Both of these, Beneath the Flames and Here If You Need Me, um, both have an uplifting story, even though there's a lot of tragedy in it. I have to say that
Right.
about.
Well, and I think, the nugget of hope too, I haven't read that book, but the nugget of hope that I take from the description is that, there is hope, right? So even in the darkest of days, if we can make it through, if we can pull ourselves through, like there's hope. I just take a lot away from that.
Yeah, I do have to say, yep, that is definitely one thing about both. Disclaimer, well, that one we can't put that together with these, but these two definitely have a good feel of that in both ways. You're
Wow.
going to cry and you're going to be very happy at different moments for both.
Thanks for curating such an interesting selection this morning. And these are just a few of the many, many books that are available at the Manitowoc Public Library. If you need recommendations, definitely talk to your local librarian. Therese, are there still like recommendation kiosks when people walk in?
We do. We have a staff pick area. We had actually, I think it is still up, but they're probably taking it down soon. There was a Bridgerton section for the people who watch the show. There were paperbacks that were either by the one that the show is based on or others that are like it. I'm trying to think. We have movie selections out. We had pies because it was Pie Day in March, and I'm sorry, I can't think offhand, but we have about 5 or 6 different areas with things to, give you some nice suggestions.
Nice. And sometimes some of my favorite reads, I have just wandered through the stacks, and I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but sometimes I will choose a book by its cover, and wow, there are some great selections.
Yeah, I must say that has been a few, probably with disclaimer. That was probably one. Here, If You Need Me, I had a staff member recommend to me. And yeah, so there's plenty of that here too with staff recommendations. Besides what you see, we're always exchanging ideas between us, as to what we're reading at the time.
That is awesome. So there are plenty of good reads available here on the coolest coast. Definitely check out your local Manitowoc Public Library. Therese, thank you so much for having this little book banter with us. It's a beautiful day to read. Do you have something new that you've got on your shelf waiting for you?
Actually, I have like 3 of them that I'm reading because they're all different things. And I have one at home and one here at work for on my break. And yeah, so I have a few. I don't know if I can recommend them yet, but yeah.
Well, tune in next time when we talk with Therese, and we'll find out if those make the list of recommendations. Therese, thanks so much. Take care. We will look forward to seeing you next time, and happy reading, Coolest Coast.
Yep.